I think it is pretty safe to say the New York Jets showed pure dominance during their home opener against their division rival New England Patriots, collecting a win of 24-3. The Jets are now 2-1 heading into their week 4 matchup against the Denver Broncos. It was pretty clear who stood out, but who are those players? Who better to bring on to talk all things New York Jets than Brandyn Pokrass of Jets X Factor? It's a Friday evening edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, and we are live.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Welcome in everyone. We are here on a Friday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, and I was at the game last night, which meant no pre- and post-game coverage for me, but I am here to talk about the game, and who better to bring on to talk all things New York Jets? He was also at the game, and it is Brandyn Pokrass of Jets X Factor. B-Pock, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It was an awesome New York Jets victory, a drubbing of the New England Patriots.
Yep.
And, it's a victory Friday. Can't really get much better than that.
Brandyn, a victory Friday at that. It's been, I don't know the exact year, but it's been, so long that the Jets have actually beat the New England Patriots at home, let alone, even just a Thursday night football victory at home. We haven't seen that in a long time as New York Jet fans. But Brandyn, I'm going to start with the Jets pass rush. Will McDonald got credit for 2 sacks last night. That puts him up to 5 on the year, according to Pro Football Focus, which is the second most among edge rushers in this league. Brandyn, Jermaine Johnson, he tore his Achilles in week 2 of the season against the Tennessee Titans. He's a huge piece of this pass rush. Obviously, Hassan Reddick is not here. I'm going to go over to Reddick. After McDonald's performance these past 2 games, are you in any rush to get Reddick in Florham Park?
I mean, I wouldn't say that the game necessarily changed my stance on Reddick. I think it'd be a really great thing to get him in the building. I think they should work to get him in the building as soon as possible. But I think that McDonald's performance shows that, at least against the lower tier competition, your Denver Broncos, the non upper tier competitors, that you can probably generate enough of a pass rush to get by and win these games and be productive on defense. The Reddick addition, and I think some people forget this, the Reddick addition is to put the Jets over the top. Saleh can coach defense. Saleh can coach a pass rush. You see that. Leonard Taylor getting in on the action. Tack McKinley. Solomon Thomas. The Jets had 7 sacks last night against the Patriots. And I know Patriots are banged up. The offensive line's banged up. But that was production you simply weren't seeing against the 49ers and against the Titans. It's good to see that progress. I just think that when it comes to Reddick, if possible, you got to get him in the building as soon as possible so you can get him and McDonald just terrorizing quarterbacks off the edge. And then that gives you the pass rush ceiling to really compete with really any offensive line you're playing the rest of the year.
Absolutely. And Brandyn, I'm going to switch over to the interior of the line. Quinnen Williams was the highest rated player on the Jets according to Pro Football Focus with a grade of 89.6. But after that, Brandyn, the interior again struggled. Solomon Thomas, we did see him line up at fullback a little on the offensive side of the ball, but he struggled on the interior. Leonard Taylor III made his NFL debut. Jalen Holmes, again, back on the team for their Week 3 matchup against New England Patriots. He seemed to struggle. He looked fine against the run these first 2 weeks. He struggled. Brandyn, this interior, how are you feeling overall, and is this a massive concern?
I mean, I think it was always going to be a question mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of different pieces. You did lose some pieces there. I think it's more, very similar to the offense. You got to see how it meshes together. We're still early in the season, right? It's only been 3 games. Javon Kinlaw is getting better and better each week, it feels like. Quinnen Williams showed that, oh my goodness, the first 2 weeks of the season don't dictate an entire season. He dominated the game. But I think it's more so, once you get beyond the Quinnens of the world, the Kinlaws of the world, what does the rest of this unit show? And I think when
Yes.
Lucky Fotu gets back from IR, that'll be a big help. That's, you brought him in to be the run stuffer. You brought him in to be the guy that helps mitigate some of the issues that the Jets have seen in the first few weeks. How does Leonard Taylor III look? I think that if the Jets give him more playing time, he could turn into that pass rusher that lines up next to Quinnen on certain downs and really gets after the passer. I think he could really bring a lot to this interior defensive line. I think Jalen Holmes could be a good run stuffer, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot of mixing and matching until the Jets really figure out a solid rotation that works for them. They are a bit shorthanded right now. They are trying to scheme things up with a lesser amount of talent in terms of that position than they've had in previous years. And I do think they have enough to get by, but this is probably one of those positions, along with edge and wide receiver, that when we arrive at a trade deadline in a few weeks, this is one of the positions you're looking at. Now, I'll say I'm confident in Saleh and Ulbricht's ability to coach the position, but at a certain point, you need the guys at those positions to fully step up. And we're going to see how that looks against Denver, Minnesota, and then Buffalo in the next 3 weeks.
Absolutely. Before I move over to the linebacker position, we do have a super chat here from Jets Flight Plan, who is also a member of the channel. He says that TD pass to was absolutely unreal. No one else can make that throw. Jets, 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 Jets. Brandon, you and I were both at that game. Get your thoughts first. What were Rodgers' performance as a whole? He threw for 281 yards, especially that touchdown throw. That was beautiful. Thoughts on Rodgers' performance and that throw?
He just looks more and more comfortable. And I think this was the thing that after the first 2 weeks, people, I think, started to understand, but didn't fully understand. Aaron Rodgers was not going to be Aaron Rodgers right from the jump of the gun in the 2024 season. This was someone that hasn't played a live snap in the extended capacity since the 2022 season. He missed all last year. And I think what you're seeing is, as the weeks progress, as he plays more and more, he's getting more comfortable. He's more comfortable within the offense, and he's getting more comfortable with the weapons and players around him. He was moving around like his MVP season, scrambling, making throws, pinpoint accuracy, just in full command of switching plays and getting everything lined up in the right way to attack this Patriots defense. This is what you want to see if you're a Jets fan, right? If you're a Jets fan and you say, okay, we have Aaron Rodgers. What do I want to see out of Aaron Rodgers? This is the game. A quarterback that's in command, a quarterback that's hitting the majority of his throws, a quarterback that is always putting the offense in a position to succeed. Now, execution-wise, some things could have been better. I think the connection with Garrett Wilson is only going to get better. But if this is the baseline, if this is what they build off of, I think it's very exciting to see what it could become over the next few weeks.
Absolutely. And Brandon, something that I really liked is the way Raj, kind of utilized his tight ends there. Conklin, we know what he could do with very low-level quarterback play, and Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, and Zach Wilson. Rodgers is always someone who likes to go to his tight ends in the red zone. He didn't get Conklin or Ruckert a touchdown. However, Ruckert especially, he's someone. This is the year there are no excuses. You could only say Long Island kid for so long. This is the year where he needs to step up and show he's worthy of a roster spot. He's a tight end. We saw him collect a few first downs, but Tyler Conklin, great overall game out of him. The final line, let me see, 5 catches for 93 yards. Conklin, I think, is such a key part of this offense, and the fact Rodgers is utilizing him, I think, is great. Also, we saw a bit more of Mike Williams, not, exactly where you want it yet, but 3 catches for 34 yards. It seems like they're kind of trying to take this thing week by week with Williams. Another great performance out of Braylon Allen. I really like the way this offense is gelling together. As for my final score prediction, though, I did have the Jets winning 31-10, so I was one score off on both sides of the ball. I had the Pats scoring a touchdown even. I shouldn't even say another touchdown, a touchdown, and I had the Jets adding another touchdown to their final score. So that was my prediction. However, I like the way 24-3 looks more than 31-10. I'd rather, keep them to single digits there. So great overall game. I cannot complain about anything, obviously, other than that, interior thing is the only thing I could say I might be a little concerned about moving forward, but great overall game. Let's see. Another question here from Daniel Meehan. I don't understand the euphoria of Jets fans pumping their chests, beating Patriots, a team that will lose 12 or 13 games. Can you explain this to me? Brandon, take it away.
Yeah, thank you for the alley-oop there.
Of course.
Yeah, I do understand, like, in a vacuum, right? The Patriots were expected to not be a good football team this year.
Yes.
And in all likelihood, they won't be a good football team this year. They had showed things that, quite frankly, if you watched all the games and understood where both teams were at, in theory, the Patriots were going to present a slight issue to the Jets if they ran the ball the way they were capable of. The rushing attack was going to be, based off everything we saw before, a slight issue for the Jets to defend. And it wasn't. I will give credit where it's due. Saleh and Obra came up with a great defensive game plan and did what they were supposed to do. They shut down the run and basically said, hey, Jacoby, hey, Patriots offensive line, beat us throwing the ball. They struggled immensely. It was a great game plan. And you would flip that to the offensive side of the ball, right? We knock Hackett consistently talking about this team and not coming ready to play. They came out aggressive. They came out with tempo. They finally started involving the tight ends. Look what happens. More motion, more sets with Braylon and Brees on the field. Lo and behold, the offense is clicking. The offense consistently moves downfield. Even that first drive of the game. Offense, if they don't have that penalty, probably get in the end zone on that drive as well. So, in just the narrow scope, it's an impressive win because the Jets haven't done this consistently. The Jets have not looked at an inferior opponent consistently over the past few years, especially under Saleh, and been like, we're just going to beat you. We're just going to put the pedal to the metal and just beat you. That has not happened enough in this regime. So seeing that means some things are different. And then you extrapolate that to do this against New England, a team has a team that, let's face it, has owned the Jets for years. It shows that the stigma, the mysticism around this Patriots team for the Jets, it's gone. This was business. All this was a talented New York Jets team beating a worse New England Patriots team. They didn't treat it like it was their Super Bowl. They didn't treat it like it was the biggest game of their season. This was just a Thursday night football victory. And I think those two things are why a lot of Jets fans are happy today and should be happy today, because this team is giving off the energy of one that knows they're a different team, knows they're not treating the Patriots game like the Super Bowl. They have bigger goals. And for the first time, honestly, this is the first time anyone that's covered the Jets, as a fan of the Jets, has been able to say this for years. So, look, I get it. Beating the Patriots isn't this crowning achievement, but it is very important for this organization and where this organization needs to go this season.
Yeah, I completely agree. You mentioned the play calling there, pedal to the metal. Completely agree what you said there. And what I will say is it's different if the Jets go out and win 14-7 or 14-10. It's a completely different ball game. Jet fans aren't this excited, but you do mention the Patriots home opener, Aaron Rodgers return to Jet Life Stadium. I mean, you were there as well as I was. When Aaron Rodgers, came out of that tunnel, the crowd went crazy. It was an electric environment, and the Jets made a statement by going out and getting that win. So that's where I think a lot of the pedal to the metal stuff comes from. And you mentioned that penalty that stalled out the Jets' first drive. Someone who was called for that penalty, Morgan Moses, came out of the game with a knee injury at the end of the third quarter. According to Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report, he's most likely not going to have to go through surgery, which is great for the Jets. However, Olu Fashanu is most likely going to have to start at least these next 2 or 3 games for the Jets. Fashanu, when he came in, he held his own in the run and the pass. For the first-round pick, finally gets his opportunity. Brandyn, how valuable is Morgan Moses to this offensive line, and how do you think Fashanu will perform? The Vikings game is a game I want to keep my eye on because Brian Flores always seems to have a game plan to get past these offensive linemen.
I mean, it's a significant injury because you brought Moses in to be one of your main pieces on this offensive line. He's a veteran presence. He's a steadying presence. And it's quite frankly, it's great news that he isn't out for the season. Like, this is a guy that the Jets are going to need for the majority of the season. He's a guy that is going to be a steadying presence on both sides of the ball whenever he gets back. And the fact that it's not season ending is probably the best news the Jets could have received. But as someone that was a draft a wide receiver proponent and at times a draft Brock Bowers proponent, this is why you draft Olu Fashanu. This is why you draft the offensive lineman. It's why they trained him at right tackle and left tackle.
Swing tackle, yep.
This offseason. Because now, instead of relying on a Carter Warren or a Max Mitchell, you now turn to your first-round pick. You now, in theory, and this is how I would see it as well, you're not going to see that drastic of a drop-off. He looked good with his reps on Thursday night. He didn't look completely lost against the Patriots. And now we're going to see what he has going forward. It's your first taste of the first-round pick that you made, and with a veteran quarterback there that has a quick release, with other veterans in that room, Moses and Tyron Smith, really to be there to help him out, I think it's going to work out just fine. And I think Olu is going to play very well. You brought him in for a reason. He's a great pass protector, which is going to be needed for this Jets offense. His run blocking looks pretty good. And if everything goes the way he's shown it, I think he could ultimately be better than Morgan Moses for this stretch of time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting one because Morgan Moses, we saw him earlier in the Douglas Sala regime. Jets end up, he got dealt away, and then the Jets bring him back. Jets fans were kind of kicking themselves after that happened because Moses went on to have a ton of success in Baltimore. They get him back, the starting right tackle. I completely agree. That's what I said. It's so important that Fashanu is the next one up at right tackle, rather someone like Carter Warren, who struggled last year in his rookie season, Max Mitchell, who had a fine start to his rookie season, but really, really struggled last year. Quite frankly, Brandyn, Max Mitchell wasn't great at guard last year, but I think his depth and his ability to slide in at guard and just even say he could play that position is one of the main reasons he's even on this New York Jets roster this year. So, it's so important that first-round pick Olu Fashanu is able to step up. But everyone, make sure you smash that like button and you are subscribed to the channel. We are joined by Brandyn Pokrass of Jets X Factor. If you'd like to send a super chat, you can click the $ right at the bottom right corner of the chat. If you'd like to become a member, the link is in the description. Brandyn, I'm going to move over to the linebacker position. CJ Mosley came off the field in week 2 with a toe injury. Jamien Sherwood shined throughout the remainder of that game. There's been so much talk. This is going to be the year. This is going to be the year that Jamien Sherwood shows the type of player that he really is. Showed it again during week 3. Got another opportunity with CJ Mosley out. What does this mean for Mosley, Brandyn?
I think it's a very interesting question and one that probably isn't talked about enough regarding the Jets because Quincy looks very, very comfortable sliding inside a little bit. He is just flying all around and making the plays. And quite frankly, to an extent, might look even better than how he did last year. I mean, it felt like whenever the Jets needed a big tackle, whenever the Jets needed a big play on defense, there was Quincy stopping a run after the catch play, stuffing a run play in its tracks. And then you put Sherwood out there. And I think this is where the discussion will be when they get Mosley back. Is Mosley's foot speed going to be there? Because when Sherwood's on the field, Sherwood is coming sideline to sideline, and he looks very, very fast on the football field. He looks very quick getting downhill, and he looks very quick side to side. If Mosley, and I understand how much he's valued, and he still needs to be a part of this defense. But if he is a step slow and that's costing them in the pass game or in the run game a little bit, you might need to start splitting those reps a little bit. Because Sherwood keeps playing at this level. Are you going to take the young guy off the field that's making your defense go? Or
Exactly.
are you going to stick with the veteran that, has the track record, but might not be the same player? And it's very interesting how much of a parallel that is to the Morgan Moses thing.
Yes.
Very interesting that you could see that same thing with the offensive line. And I think the Moses thing's a little bit different because, we haven't seen it yet with Olu. We haven't seen it yet with him, for a full NFL game. So if you reach that point, that's the same type of conversation, right? If Olu is playing better than Moses, okay, are you going away from the first round pick to just put the veteran back in? Or now are you kind of flip-flopping things and having Moses as that depth? It's a very interesting question. And I personally would say you got to give Mosley the shot again, because it was injury that knocked him out. It wasn't performance. But if I'm Robert Saleh, if I'm Jeff Ulbrich, if things start to really go south because Mosley's toe injury is bothering him or he can't move the same way, you got to get Sherwood back on the field in that event and just keep him honestly, keep Sherwood involved regardless. Get him reps on the field regardless. But if things start to go south, I think you might have to flip-flop things where Sherwood's the guy and then Mosley is that situational player.
Absolutely, I completely agree. If you'd like to call into the show, it is the pin comment in the chat. Let's get to your calls. We got Charles Gorman joining the show. Charles, how you doing?
Great, man. The game was awesome last night. I was able to watch it on Amazon Prime. It was a lot of fun. And I did a short video/live stream on StreamYard where I basically said that I think the number one storyline for this year should be our offensive line. I mean, our offensive line has been, other than Aaron Rodgers being Aaron Rodgers, the saving grace of our season this year has been our offensive line. And let me explain my reason why. Yes, our quarterback play the past several years has been atrocious overall. But what has been just as bad, if not worse, was our offensive line play. And that's what screwed over our season last year, was our offensive line play. This year, our offensive line play, thank God we didn't lose Morgan Moses, but if you look at our other offensive linemen, Tyron Smith is a future Hall of Famer for a reason. John Simpson's a rising star in this league. Joe Tippman's a rising star. Elijah Vera Tucker, when he's healthy on the field, he's one of the best in the business. And Olu Fashanu, I'm not going to lie. I was very happy. I know Brandyn, is it? Or is it Brandyn, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I see why. My apologies. I understand a lot of Jet fans, including yourself, were pro-weapon, but I was like, that would be fine, but we needed we need depth on the offensive line. I was one of those Jet fans that needed depth on the offensive line, and we chose a really good player, Olu Fashanu. He was great in OTAs and in training camp. He was phenomenal in the preseason, and he looked pretty damn good against a defense that was seemingly well coached. But yesterday they got picked apart, and they're also somewhat undisciplined. I mean, there was a play in the game where Tavai suplexed or body slammed Breece Hall. And by the way, if you heard this front house, I forgot his name. Pardon me if I forgot his name. Does college football from time to time. He pretty much said he broadcast the game on Amazon Prime with Al Michaels, who I'm a huge fan of.
Kirk Herbstreit.
Kirk Herbstreit, thank you.
He does College Game Day, yes, with Pat McAfee, all those guys.
Kirk Herbstreit was like, when John Simpson, who I'm really starting to love on this offensive line, Joe Douglas, whatever you do, give this man an extension, give this man a bag of chips, a bag of cookies to stay in New York, because this man is awesome. And he stood up for Breece Hall, and Kirk Herbstreit said none of the Jets offensive linemen did that last year.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Charles. We do appreciate the call. Brandyn, oh God, what just happened there? Here we go. We're back. Brandyn, thoughts on, we spoke about Fashanu, but what is the ceiling really for this offensive line?
I mean, if they keep playing the way they're playing, I think you're seeing the ceiling, right?
Yeah.
And the big thing I'd say is Aaron Rodgers makes things that much better too, right? When you have an all-pro, all-world quarterback that gets the ball out in under at times 2.5 seconds, it makes the offensive line's job that much easier. So I think the ceiling's pretty damn high. You know, the pass blocking looks really good between AVT, Tippmann. Tyron Smith gave up a few pressures, but he looks pretty good, all things considered. Moses or Fashanu on the right tackle side. Simpson, you know, excuse me.
All good.
The pass blocking's there, but I think you're starting to see the run game come alive a little bit. Piece by piece, week by week, you're starting to see it look better. And this is something that, you know, we talked about a lot last year. The unit never had a chance to mesh. They're starting to mesh this year. They're starting to really get comfortable with each other. And as Rodgers gets more comfortable under center, I think you could see this offensive line play really, really, really damn well.
Absolutely. You know, I'm going to be really intrigued to see how Fashanu plays. Will he live up to this hype these next few weeks? Moving in at right tackle, keep in mind, not one of his primary positions. We saw a lot of him at left tackle. That's what he was kind of drafted to do, sit behind Tyron Smith and Lauren. But hey, I'm really happy, like I said, that he's the next man up. Let's see what we have in the chat here. David Hall Jr., what Jets jersey are you rocking currently, David? Jermaine Johnson, the Achilles-prone defensive lineman, not prone really. I mean, he did tear his Achilles, so week 2, yes, not great. Most likely out for the season, but I got to represent Jermaine Johnson. We saw what Will McDonald said after the game. Everyone's rallying around JJ. I was gonna wear my Tippmann jersey today on the show, but I don't know what happened. So yes, I'm wearing Jermaine Johnson. We have Taylor Sterling, and he says Pats are good at what was perceived as our weaknesses. We proved it isn't. That is why fans are celebrating. Brandon, I know we got into this a little, but again, an interdivision game with the Patriots, how do you expect really the Jets to stack up against the other teams in the division?
I think Miami's really interesting right now because you don't catch Miami until really late in the season.
14 and 18.
So much can change for this Dolphins team, right? What's the quarterback situation? What's the running back situation?
Yeah.
What's the offensive line looking like, right? I don't think we can sit here, me, you, on this show right now, and really give a good sense of what the Dolphins are going to be by December or late November. It'd be fruitless, right? Because I could say, it's going to be a tough matchup because, Mike McDaniel can still scheme things up, X, Y, and Z. The roster could be completely different by that point. The Jets could be completely different, but as of now, I think the Jets would have the advantage because last time they played Skylar Thompson, it wasn't good for the Dolphins. I'll leave it at that. It was a very bad game for Miami, but I think the main competition is going to be with Buffalo. And that Monday night game, if the Jets handle business against the Broncos and the Vikings, that's your next barometer. That's your next test. How do you stack up against a team that has run this division for the past few seasons? And I think it'll be really interesting, right? Buffalo is a team that finally, after years of, acting like it didn't exist, really has embraced the rushing game, really has embraced their running attack. James Cook and Josh Allen have looked really good in this area. That is the game where you're going to see, I guess Minnesota to an extent as well, but I think Buffalo is the true test where you're going to see, how does this rush defense stack up? Is it a fluke, what they showed against New England, just shutting down Ramondre? Or is that more of the same, right? The pass rush. How are they going to get home against Buffalo? If they get home, I think you can feel really good about this defense, quite frankly. And their ability to get after the passer without Hassan Reddick. Then the offensive side, right? If you can take advantage of Buffalo's weaknesses and outmaneuver Sean McDermott, I think you feel really good about the offense's prospects going forward. It's one of those games where it's a really good coaching staff, it's a good roster, and if you lose it, you have a lot of work to do. And maybe you're not there just yet. Maybe you're not division winner level, but you're in the wild card mix. If you beat Buffalo, then I think the conversation starts turning to, how many games can this team win as upside? And how, excuse me,
all good.
How realistic does this division look for the Jets? That's the game that I'm circling with a giant red Sharpie, giant black Sharpie, whatever Sharpie you use. I'm not discriminating against any color you use, blue, green, yellow, they all look great, right? But whatever Sharpie you use, whatever pen you use, that's the game you circle, because that's your barometer, in my opinion, of, is this team for real, or are they more of the good but not great caliber of team?
Absolutely. And what you said there, I completely agree with. The Dolphins quarterback situation right now. Tua, will he retire? Will he not? Tim Boyle, quite frankly, BPOC, is one injury away. The Dolphins are one injury away from Tim Boyle being their starting quarterback. Skylar Thompson, will be taking over the duties over in Miami. And then the Bills, yes, they're 2-0 to start the year, but they beat the Cardinals, which, yes, there's some hope for them, but they're not a crazy talented team. And then the Dolphins, obviously, where Tua got injured. Bills are interesting because I was a little concerned about them, especially with the receiver room going into the year. Khalil Shakur, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel. Khalil Shakur, who's in line to be a top receiver for them, hasn't surpassed 740 yards in his career. So will this receiver room continue to succeed as the season goes on, especially with these more, these tougher matchups coming up? But BPOC, appreciate you joining me here. You got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think my last thing I'd want to say is, celebrate the win, be excited. Jets fans have every right after so many rough years, especially this stretch, whether it's the Aaron Rodgers years, the Zach Wilson years, the Sam Darnold years, every right to be excited with this type of win. But just remember that this could only be the start, and just sit back and enjoy, right? Enjoy what should be a win against Denver.
Yes.
Enjoy what should be a fun game against Minnesota. And it all leads into the biggest game of the year up to that point, in the Buffalo Bills game on Monday night. That's the one, like I said, that I'm really excited about going forward.
Absolutely, Brandon. We do appreciate you joining me here alongside Brandyn Pokrass of Jets X Factor. I'm Connor Long, also of Jets X Factor, signing off. We do appreciate everyone watching here on this Friday. And as always, JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.